started with this. So welcome. My name is Marco. I'm with Plus Plus. And today we're going to be learning from Benji and how he is doing engineering training at Slack, engineering onboarding, I should say. Before we get started, just really quickly, so I'll give you a quick overview of what Plus Plus is, because that's kind of like the backdrop for the story. A little bit about history of our relationship, and then Benji will present his technicals, how he runs his technical programs. And at the end, we'll open it for any questions, comments, as well as announce upcoming talks. We have quite a few lined up for you from other peers in the industry. So with that, Plus Plus started a while back. I actually used to have Benji's role at Twitter, building Twitter University. We ran all the engineering education, and we noticed we had a need for a platform. Otherwise, it was going to be a lot of paper pushing. There was a lot of calendar invites, Slack notifications, emails going back and forth, and a ton of spreadsheets gluing everything together. And it wasn't fun. So being engineers, we built a platform at Twitter. We called it Go Learn, and it was basically our events management platform. And as I showed it to other people in the industry, it seemed like it was something that was going to be useful. So we spun that out from Twitter as a separate company and launched it. I believe Salesforce was the first one to kind of use it at scale. And as you know, Slack is part of the Salesforce organization now. So essentially, what Plus Plus is a unified learning platform. So we're trying to be one-stop shop for everything that you as a program manager need. So at the bottom, we connect to your other systems, such as your Workday, for example, to ingest all the data and as a source of truth. And then on top of that, what we provide are three pillars. One is live learning events. So this is how you manage your workshops, your classes, things that happen with a specific time and place. We have on-demand content, so that can be a traditional LMS type of content, so SCORM files, etc. But in the context of engineering organizations, it's more often code labs or Confluence wiki pages or video recordings in whatever format that may be of previous sessions. Or just Google Slides and things like that you want to share and assemble larger curriculum by using what you already have in-house. This tends to be very popular with engineers because it means they don't need to spend a lot of time creating something new. They can reuse what they have, and they also don't need to learn new tools. They can use the tools they already know, such as text editor for code labs or Google Docs and Confluence and so on. And then what we have also is connections. So we basically realized, well, it's people coming together, people learning on their own, or people connecting with one another. And so Expert Connections is really discovering who in your organization is the right person to tap on the shoulder. And this is becoming more and more interesting as we move to sort of the remote workplace, where you may not run into the right person, in the cafeteria waiting for pizza. And so that serendipity is kind of lost, but the data is there. So we try to surface that by making it easy to discover internal experts based on various signals that we have, least of which is who's been teaching classes and contributing learning content. And you can also get together around experts in the form of mentorship programs, office hours, coaching sessions, and such. Now, to glue all this together, we have something called tracks. And this is where it all comes alive in longer arcs of blended learning experience. So a track could be an engineering onboarding program. That would be a perfect example. That's what we built it for. It could be a leadership development program. So anything that is a little more complex than a single course, and that you may want to have a cohort of people go through that experience in a lockstep. And it could be a longer experience. It could be days, weeks, or months sometimes. So that's what Tracks is. So that's kind of like sort of like a quick overview of the platform and what it provides. So Slack, we met back a couple of years ago. Even though we've been working with Salesforce for 8+ years, we got introduced to Slack since 2022. It's just under 1,000 users. One of the things that we're proud of is that a lot, even though the number of users is higher, a very large percentage of them is monthly active. We don't see other tools come as close when it comes to learning. Of course, Slack and such have much higher engagement, but as a learning tool, a lot of users are monthly engaged. And it starts usually with technical training and onboarding, but the scope usually from there on tends to expand to other soft skills as well as leadership development, management development. So that's kind of like a quick introduction how we got here, and we're super pleased to have Benji join us. Benji is going to talk about how he's using plus plus. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and pass on the mic to Benji. Welcome.
Oh, there
There
we
we
go.
go. There we go. It's pretty amazing that they keep on changing Zoom so that even though I consider myself a Zoom professional, using it changes all the time. And it's just one of the ways in which we model flexibility and resilience. So by saying, oh, okay, that's not working. We're going to keep on going. All right. And I'm going to say as I get started what I always say, which is I love to see your faces, and you're not my student, so you don't have to, but I would love to see some faces partway through. And I'm going to dive in now. My name is Benji Shine. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am a trans man, which means that for the first half or so of my life, I was presenting as a woman and kind of thought I was. And then, and for half of that, I was a software engineer. And then I joined Slack in 2018 when I was no longer a software engineer. I am a cat dad, and you can read more about me at benji.io. From my point of view, the goal of engineering learning is to make the business more successful. And to me, that becomes helping the engineers become better at their jobs. And then I have a personal goal here that I want to build and persist a culture that's kind, collaborative, and diverse, which engineering learning actually can really help with. All of my training starts from the idea that engineers want to be great at their jobs. I don't need to do any mandates on any of this training because engineers want to learn. So my challenges to help engineers be great at their job are kind of threefold that fits together. Building great training is a starting point, but then I need to get people to engage with the training. Then I need to know whether the training is successful, and then I need to make it more successful. So in this talk, I'm going to show you a bunch of ways that I put all of that together to build effective training. So first off, I'm going to show you this slide. Something like 62% very satisfied, 38% somewhat satisfied. So that's nice. Some different. But what I value more is I get a ton of 5-star reviews. I think I have one 4-star review on Plus Plus and a couple hundred 5-star reviews. But what's more valuable here is the stuff that I've bolded is that they actually enjoy the quizzes. The exercises are helpful, insanely helpful. The quiz especially. There's one here at the bottom, the person says, this was a tough one. I learned a lot. And then they actually, without me asking, say, I recommend it for new and experienced Slack engineers. However, liking is not learning. Liking helps with learning, but we need to go a lot farther. I believe liking is Kirkpatrick level 1, and I'm not sure what Kirkpatrick level 2, 3, and 4 are, but I'm hoping one of you does and you can tell me about it in the chat. So for today, we're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff. Ending up with takeaways, and there's going to be brief digression on bugs. And throughout, my training is in software development, and I want to become better at doing professional learning and development. So if you have any great readings on assessment theory, please share them with me, either in the chat or I'm also in the TechnoCon Slack. So fundamental question that, thank you, Arjan. Learning retention, application, ROI. Yes, thank you. So a fundamental question that I've faced my whole time as an engineering learning and development professional is just how do we measure and improve skill development? And I've heard from Marco and Michael that it is quite a challenge for all of us. The techniques that I've developed lately are using very fine-grained analysis of assessment and surveys in a way that is really only possible since I've been using the latest features of and then also doing some data analysis in Tableau, which is a Salesforce product for data visualization. Also, cats are an important part of my training technology. It's hard to get them on camera just right, but cats are very important. We're going to talk more about that. So I know we all have different levels of experience with so I want to show you the student experience as I've put it together I rely on tracks fundamentally. And then within the tracks, I have code labs and assessments and surveys, sometimes links, sometimes articles, primarily code labs. What are code labs? Actually, this slide from the Help Center describes it really better, describes the win better than I can. Code labs, we can write through Markdown, and then we can have engineers edit them in GitHub. And this is wildly important to me because I am not an expert in all of the stuff. And also, I don't want to have to do all of the learning and development content creation. I am the only learning and development engineering guy for all of Slack. So I need to have my engineers as collaborators. So code labs are absolutely crucial. The Markdown tool set is a little bit finicky and it's a little bit tricky to embed videos, but it is absolutely the main focus of where I'm having engineers do content development right now. This is one of the ways that it may look. Pretty standard steps down the side, images and videos embedded. And then another important part of what I do in is I have assessments, which we also call quizzes, and I intersperse them with code labs and assessments and surveys. This is in fact a pretty bad assessment question. I'm going to show you some better ones soon. The last thing that I started really leveraging for is surveys with actionable insights. Having the surveys built into the tool really helps me, and I'll show you some specific questions that lets me get to useful survey content. So back again, how do we measure skill development? There's a concept of Bloom's taxonomy of learning, which has all these different levels of learning. Probably as L&D professionals, you already know about this. What I've found is that the level of applying skills is very useful for technical material because I can get fine-grained enough that I can find out if they really know it, but I don't have to do manual grading. I don't have to see, do they really understand it? This is beautiful because I can have an active learning objective. Students will be able to do something, and then I can say that thing, and then my assessment is simply, go do that thing. Did you get the answer right? An example here, I was inspired a couple years ago by the Stanford massively online, it's a MOOC. I don't remember what the O and the C is. Probably Marco remembers MOOC. And they were teaching databases to thousands of people at once. And so one of their great questions was just find the number of students who are either friends with Cassandra or friends of Cassandra. To get the right answer there, you have to be able to do join and you have to be able to do count unique. And that can be just a multiple choice question, but you know that they know the technique if they do it right. So I started using questions like this inside of code labs. What is the total number of lines that match Arquay or both? And then I would just tell them on the next page of the code lab, well, the answer was 11. Here's how we did it. Is that what you got? And that helped a lot. People were able to do things and were able to learn some stuff. So for a while, I was asking them, massive open online course. Thank you, Marco, and Michael. So for a while, I was asking people before and after the training, can you do this? here's my learning objective. Can you do it? And average, I got an increase of 2 points from I could maybe figure this out all the way up to I can definitely do this at a basic level. However, discovered that that was not precise enough. So in May 2023, launched assessments, and I was so excited. And I started working with them with assessments. What I found out really quickly was that the actual scores people were getting on my assessments were far lower than what they were reporting to me as, oh yeah, I can do this, which is great. I'm getting fine-grained details about what they don't actually know. So now I'm going to go detail it more closely. That was the overview. Now let's look at exactly what we can do in assessments to be useful and powerful. The assessments have to reflect skill acquisition, and what I found is that actually creating the useful assessments is the hardest part. Sometimes multiple choice works, but I have to do a lot of work to get to a useful multiple choice. So in this case, I'm having them analyze a stack trace, and I need them to tell me what's the important line of this stack trace. Stack trace has maybe 12 things. I give them 4 options. It's a reasonable multiple choice question. What works a lot better is the short answers with matching any of. I believe there's some other options in there. I always just use any of. That way people have to tell me the right thing from the entire world of, 40 character strings. They have to get the right thing. Now they often will get this wrong at first, which is great. If I just gave them answers that questions they could answer easily, they wouldn't see the point. They would get bored. They like solving tricky problems. And I like that drives them to do careful thinking about what they're seeing and careful reading. And it tells me how my training can improve. I let people retry their trainings about between 3,000 and 30,000 times. That's rarely necessary to go that high. And I say it sort of as a joke because I just want them to keep on trying until they get it right. I trust that they want to learn things. And I don't care if it takes them a whole bunch of tries, so long as they go back and they learn the thing. So I'm able to give them wrong answer feedback that actually helps them learn. This is a new feature that added. I think we talked about this, and they added it because I asked them to. It used to be you get the same feedback on a right answer or a wrong answer. What they added, they went even farther than I asked for. I can give them now separate feedback on each of the different answers. So I know what they're thinking by what answer they pick. This is for multiple choice only, obviously, but I can give them specific information that points them in the right direction. And that makes it more likely that on the next time through, they're going to get it right. Not by guessing, but by actually understanding. With these, another thing that I asked for and that built was formatted rich text feedback and answers. And now I embed tons of images and really go detail in the assessment into the explanation, because the moment where an engineer gets a wrong answer is magical. At that moment, they want to know. So I don't even want to send them back to, oh, go read about it here. I want to tell them right there, I'm going to explain it to you. Sometimes also I will ask them some of the questions, some of the skills that we want them to be able to do are quite complicated. And I've worked out a couple ways that I can ask them to do a very complex task to arrive at a very simple answer. So here I gave them a stack trace, and I want to know what is the PR that created that last modified that line, which is something that engineers are going to have to do quite a lot, because quite often we'll have errors that are caused by recent changes. So I asked them just to find the Easter egg in the PR discussion. No way they can get this. When they actually find the right PR, they'll see this image, the secret word is sunlight. And then I accept any of these answers. They know when they get it right, and they want to keep looking until they get it right. I find over and over that people are actually repeating the quiz until they get it right. I love that. So she did this at 5:09, at 5:12, and then 5:13. And I can see that with ++. Take a moment here to talk about rapid software development, but actually not Slack rapid software development, rapid software development. This is a small team and they move fast and they build so much stuff. And because software development is software development, I expect bugs in new features, and you should too. Not a lot of them, but they're going to be there. And so there are various ways that you can not let them ruin your day. One way that is crucial that they gave me pretty early on was a sandbox. This is a totally separate instance of where my users have no access and I can try the same thing over and over and over again. Strongly recommended that you ask your CSM, probably Michael Wallace, for a sandbox. The other thing is I suggest that you treat the vendor as a partner because they really are. Michael Wallace told me he wants to help us get promoted. And I'm getting lots of respect, at least. I don't think promotion is possible because I'm da-da-da-da-da. But I've had hundreds of intercom conversations with Chris, who's the guy who answers the intercom. And that's resulted in, over the 2.5 years we've been working together, they've created 90 tickets, and they've actually solved, with new features or bug fixes, 70 of the tickets that I've reported. It is absolutely worth engaging in great detail to tell them exactly what's wrong and exactly what you need. And I suggest doing that with empathy and also screenshots and videos. I've been giving them screenshots or videos of actual learners actually reporting the actual problem as it's happening. And that is very motivating and inspiring to them to actually go and fix the thing. All right, so that was bugs. Let's go back over to data-driven iteration. Now, assessments give me very fine-grained data, and gives me very fine-grained access to it. It happens that I have access to Tableau. Tableau is a software product from Salesforce that is amazing at data visualization and data exploration. I've been wanting to use Tableau for years, but I didn't have data that was worth visualizing. Not enough of it, at least. But now I do. So I can go into Tableau. No, sorry, I can go into and there's this beautiful button, Export CSV. I export data from Tableau, from into Tableau. Then I can look at it and analyze it. I want to build trainings that hundreds and hundreds of engineers at Slack take. And before I do that, I want to make sure that it's actually useful. So I decided not to scale to more users until I have the average score on the assessments being 80% or better. So I started in December, January, February, and people were getting like 2/3 right. That is not enough. Then in March, I did get it. I got the training and the assessments close enough together. And then I said, okay, great. I'm ready for lots of people. And in fact, that's how it went. The bottom line is how many participants I had. And I had 2 or 3 or 4 a month in this particular training. Then finally in June, I was ready. Bring me all your engineers. It takes a while to actually get engineers signed up. So I'm still at about, I think I had 20 in that particular training. Another beautiful thing I can do with Tableau analyzing the assessments is I can compare different scores on different quizzes. So I gave them a practice quiz just to get familiar with using Tableau. They're supposed to get 75% right, and they did. Then my easiest module, the one that I worked on the most before I turned it into an assessment, people are getting, these are bins. So this one, the 75% is, they got about 75% right. Then I noticed with this easy one, there's more people who are getting only half right. Some people are getting it all right. Great. But then I started another one that was significantly more complicated. And I noticed that a lot of the people are getting it half correct. The same number of people are getting it half correct as they're getting it all correct. That tells me there's a problem with my training. And so I iterated on it and I made it better. I think this data is kind of hard to see in the built-in viz, but maybe they'll make it, or maybe they've added it since I last looked. Another thing that I can do with data analysis is I can export their code completion, and then I can export code lab completion, and then I can compare that to their titles. Looking at this without seeing the titles, I'd be kind of worried. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people who aren't getting through this code lab at all. But then I look more closely. Okay, an intern, an administrative assistant, and a level 1 software engineer aren't getting through it. Okay, I'm not so worried about that. I don't expect an administrative assistant to be able to get through it. And then I can look at the exact point where they all drop off. The actual people who are software engineers are dropping off about 75% of the way through. I can look at that point, say, why are they dropping off there? Going one level deeper, I can export their exact answers. You have to go to the assignments page, not the dashboard page, which makes sense if you think about it, and you're just going to remember this when you have to do it. When I export their exact answers, I can see what the exact wrong answers are. In this case, a lot of them were answering butterfly, which is correct, but some of them were answering butterfly milk delivery service, which is not quite right. By seeing those exact incorrect answers, I added a hint. If the field value is my frog loves to sing, then enter frog as your answer. Once I added that hint, I stopped getting the wrong answer that was too long. Granted, I could also have added it as a correct answer, but in this case, I wanted them to be doing the very close reading of the question to understand exactly what I was asking. All right, so I've just shown you overall after the fact analysis ways that I can understand and improve the training with data. I also can understand and improve the training with data while I'm in a live experience. What I've worked out works well for my community here is I'll have a bunch of people come into a big Zoom room, and then I will split them into Zoom groups, Zoom breakout rooms of about 2 to 4 people, totally randomly. I will end up with 5 to 10 breakout rooms. And then there's just me, one facilitator, and then I also have just the one cat cam. So it's challenging to know where do I send the cats and where do I go. I've done before I had this technique, I would spend the entire session bouncing between every single room saying, are you doing okay? Are you doing okay? Are you doing okay? That is exhausting. What I found, oh, right, also important here, I let people choose if they want to work independently, not as part of a group. And then I put them in a room where all of the solo learners learn together. So it's a little tiny bit social. I get beautiful responses when I can actually observe learners live. See and record vendor bugs. Crucially, I can encourage collaboration. If I go into a Zoom room and nobody's talking, I can say, hey, Ryan, I know you know a lot about message inspectors. Can you help them out? They can ask me questions, which I then drive to channels. People are way more likely to ask a question live to a human being than they are to post it in a Slack channel. But I really, really want them to post their questions in Slack channels because that drives collaboration throughout the enterprise. So if they ask me a question and I say to them, that's a great question for new eng questions, please go post it there. They're more likely to actually post it and then we'll actually get to drive that collaboration. But also, I want to be able to track their progress live. So inside of this is the track progress page that I can watch live. And I can see, wow, some of these people aren't getting through this at all. I wonder what's wrong. And I can go into that room. I can also look at actual quizzes and I can see what people are getting right or wrong. So here I can see there's a bunch of people who got 67%. Oh, sorry, that's progress. Progress and score are different. You can look and see exactly who is struggling and then go exactly to that room. Also, crucial part of my training these days is cat cam. Having cats in a training just cheers people up. So, are you gonna wake up? You can wake up and say hello. Here's Aria, and here's Sam's chilling out. And so what I do during the trainings is I randomly send the cat cam to any room. However, it's actually not random. I actually go to the rooms that I think are quiet or struggling. Oh, I woke her up. Sorry, sweetie. I have a dedicated iPad Air just for them. It's a little hard to get the right camera angles. But people are really forgiving if they just see some fuzziness, you know? All right. Fuzziness. And also this sort of breaks things up and let's, well, okay. Dropped it. Not gonna worry about cat cam for you folks. Moving on. They are incredibly cute. And I actually get in my training responses quite frequently, what would be better about this training? Needs more cats. Okay, I'll help. And then this is what it actually looks like. There'll actually be cats in the Zoom room. Also, I've made specific carpet choices to help with cat visibility. So behind me over here, there's kind of a pathway, apparently my camera moved lately, of striped carpet, which makes my black cats much more visible. This sounds silly, but Sam will often play catch with me or play fetch. He'll let me throw it and he'll bring it back and throw it and bring it back. And I laid out my office so that you can see the cats coming and going because people really like it. It's so silly, but they really like it. All right, moving on to surveys. As I said at the beginning, oh, he's moving. Am I going to get a good picture of him? Satisfaction isn't actionable and liking isn't learning. All right, get a little bit of fuzz. So as I design the surveys, I've had years of getting different surveys back. And I designed the surveys specifically to get what I need to do to make the training better. My surveys are not anonymous, and I am so glad that ++ lets me do this because the identity of the person giving me this feedback matters. Too easy and too hard are both important things to hear, but if it's a staff level engineer telling me it's too hard, then I've got a problem. If it's a staff level engineer telling me it's too easy, that's what I expect. So I need the context to make sense of this. I run my trainings for probably 5 to 50 engineers at once, and I onboarded all of them. So I know most of the engineers at Slack. Can also, these non-anonymous surveys also lets me do individual follow-up to individuals. Izzy, I saw you haven't completed your survey yet, and I really value what you think of this training. Would you please fill it out? Asking people one-on-one to fill out surveys is also magic. And I find I get so much value from the surveys that it's absolutely worth my time to do that. Now, here are the exact questions that I came up with. We start with satisfaction, fine. I give them checkboxes for which parts of this training need improvement. So even if they're not feeling chatty, it can just tell me quickly, the quizzes need improvement, the diagrams need improvement. And that is really important signal. I started asking, how long did this training take you in language that is meaningful to other engineers and engineering managers? So now I can go to an engineering manager and say, I'd like to run this for your team. And almost everyone got it done in less than an hour. A couple people, it took a little bit more than an hour. And that is really meaningful because they want to know how much of my team's time do I have to dedicate to training. The next training I came up with is, Matt, the next question is super powerful to me because, as I said, the point of engineering learning is to move the business forward, make the business better, make engineers better. So I asked them, do you think this training will help you do your work at Slack in the next 12 months? If people are saying no to that, then I'm wasting my time building the training. They're wasting their time in the training. So I want to get that right. And then I leave some just big, wide open questions. My people are pretty chatty, which I'm very grateful for. What was unclear or incorrect? Is there anything else you'd like to tell us? Okay, I went into this in detail. And these are the kind of numbers that I'm getting. Will this help your work in the next 12 months? Quite a lot of yes, it will. This definitely will help with my work. It tells me I'm going in the right direction. Maybe this will help a little. I can take that. Right, and here's nice big, I love that there's the option for this nice big expandable text area. Sometimes they tell me a lot. And then I do direct one-to-one follow-up on feedback on anything the slightest bit spicy. I will tell them directly, thank you for your feedback. I will say, oh, you really enjoyed this training. Perhaps you'd like to help me run it again later. If they tell me about a problem, I will DM them and say, I fixed this because of you. And then also if they tell me about a problem with the system, then I'll say, oh, great, can you show me? And I'll jump into a huddle with them and I'll get a screenshot, which I can then share with the vendor, which helps them actually fix it. Sometimes I will ask them for permission to attribute their quote. If I have senior staff engineers saying, I really learned a lot from this, then I want to be able to attribute that to like, oh, well, I'm not going to say their names because that's PII. This senior staff engineer says, I've been here for 4 years and I learned a lot. That's an important message to other engineers that it's worth doing. I've done this direct one-to-one follow-up on feedback for all of the surveys that I've gotten, and it has really helped to build a livable, survivable, useful feedback culture at Slack. We do say a lot of, this is great, I loved it. But then people will also say what's broken, and I need that to make it better. So I'm going to bounce back up to the takeaways. Whoop. Bloom's taxonomy of learning, I find it very useful to focus in on making assessments at the level of apply. And then going from we must apply, we start with active learning objectives. We build assessments that exercise the objective, even though it's hard. I forgot to mention this, but my best assessments have required engineers going into production code and inserting specific things in production code that will generate errors so that I can have the engineers practice finding them. Or I have built a lot of spaces in our development environment that are explicitly designed for people to go on quests to find things in there. It takes so much more work to build an active assessment than to just ask them a multiple choice question, and it's worth it. The short text answers with string matching let the engineers know that we're not fooling around. They actually have to do it. I do fine-grained data analysis, and then I make the vendor my partner. I happily collaborate with the vendor. And then throughout all of this, what's informing everything is I trust the engineers to want to be great at their jobs. And I view myself as in a position of service to them, of finding them the information they need and bringing it to them such that they can learn it. So I told you about my challenges at the beginning. Am I driving engagement to actually do the trainings? I'm working on it. I'm going a little slowly and I'm not yet at the numbers that I want, but I know that I have the data that can drive it. It's scary to go to a VP and say, I'd like to run all of your 200 people through my training. It'll take six hours. But now I believe that it's worth doing. Am I measuring training success? It's sort of semi-automated. I actually had to do a lot of work to get to these visualizations. If I did a little bit more work with GraphQL, then probably I could make it less automated. I'm willing to do it semi-automated. And then am I improving engagement and success? This is the most important thing, is that what I built here is a system that lets me iteratively forever improve engagement and success. The other thing I want to mention here, this is my second to last slide. This year, I'm really proud to report that I won an award through all of Slack. I won as the heart of the culture. And one of the specific things that they called out, Benji gets engineers to connect with each other and collaborate, which has led to invaluable connections among PDE. I'm not an organizational psychologist. I'm not a program manager. I'm a learning and development specialist, but I've set up the learning and development explicitly to build these connections. And the way that we explicitly build these connections is by putting people in the same room with problems to solve that some of them know how to solve and some of them don't. And then they're sharing information casually. casually and naturally in a way that would not come about naturally through their actual work. So I'm driving collaboration and connection, and that's what I want to be doing on this planet, helping people connect with each other and work together better. That's the end of my presentation, and I would love to hear from you on what kind of assessments are working well for you, and if you have any great readings on assessment theory, I would love to hear about it. Thank you very much. That is my presentation for today.
Thanks, Benji. That was super inspiring. I'm not surprised that you won the culture award. It's really getting people around, like chasing mastery. Has creates a community which changes culture. So we kind of know that. So I did not know, but it doesn't surprise me that you are the one shaping the culture at Slack, and Slack is known for awesome collaborative engineering culture. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And very inspiring that whole like how you doing assessments. It's definitely next level. Yeah, you gamified it in an elegant way. So love it. So with that, any questions from the audience? Anything that comes up? In the meantime, thank you for also for all those 90 plus bug reports or feature requests. We get to learn a lot from you.
Yeah, I strongly recommend that everybody here take some time just to observe the learners actually using the tool. It's frightening for them, but we learn so much.
I got a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. Benji, thank you so much for sharing today. Awesome. So awesome to see all the work that's being put into it. I got a question in regards to Tableau. Are you connecting directly to the plus plus API, or are you downloading the CSVs and then importing them into Tableau?
Excellent question. Am I connecting directly or am I downloading? In this case, I decided to export everything to CSV and download it. I started doing the GraphQL export, and I made the decision that I actually have to make a bunch of times, which is, this is possible to engineer. It would be great if I did engineer it, but that's not what I should be doing with my time right now. If I had a team and an engineer I could go point at it, then I would definitely want to have done it through GraphQL. The other thing there is what I would have done would have used GraphQL to export exactly the files I need and then still upload that to somewhere semi-manually. We are at Salesforce really careful about our data, and I would not have been allowed to just install a GraphQL connector to our trusted vendor and put stuff into our data. So I ended up doing this. As I said, it's big data, but it's not that big. It's not big data. So I end up running a round of analysis after I run a bunch of trainings. And that's good enough for me. I couldn't handle the data any faster than I can export it.
Thank you. I have another question, which is based on all of the data that you calculate in Tableau, how do you, which ones do you pick to, you shared a lot that, you use that are actionable to improve things for your own programs. How do you pick which ones should be shared with management or other stakeholders?
I pretty much share nothing but very high level summaries. 68% says that this will help them in the next 12 months. We don't yet have a system at Slack where I can easily point people at dashboards that I have set up. And honestly, I don't think they would go look at them. For the most part, the engineering management, again, I onboarded almost everyone at Slack, and they know me and they know the material that I do. And so they trust me to put out good material, and they trust that they would hear about it if it wasn't good. So I consider it my job to make it extremely easy for them to choose to engage with me. I have a top level, they're called V2 moms now, that I get to choose. They're just, I want 300 engineers to engage with this quarter. And then I report out in our V2 mom goal tracking system. Am I meeting my goal? Am I not meeting my goal? Keep it very, very simple for my stakeholders.
Thanks so much.
B2Mom is the Salesforce version of OKRs, right?
Yes. Yeah. Vision,
Yeah.
something, something, something. Yeah.
I was going to ask, I was confused about that acronym. I thought it was a literal mom.
Oh, yeah, no. Vision, values, methods, obstacles. It's OKRs. I do find though that when I have other people teaching, they want finer grained access and to the survey results. I have not yet been able to give them finer grained access to their survey results because I haven't switched enough of the trainings over to this kind of survey. When I do the Qualtrics surveys of like, are you satisfied? Everybody just says, this is great. And it needs more activities. So I don't even bother giving people actual analysis of those surveys. It's useless. I just tell them, people love it, needs more activities. But once I get them using this new kind of survey, I will definitely be giving them access.
Thanks for good questions, Rajan. Thanks, Benji. Any other questions, comments? And for what it's worth, I know you mentioned, Benji, that sometimes it's hard to connect directly to the API because of the security. And so we see that like at the large organizations like Salesforce usually writes a kind of a proxy that collects the data and then does something downstream with the data. So that's a way that's done. And we also see random teams access data directly. So like, for example, security team writes a little app where they can check who hasn't taken security training in a while. And they just kind of automate that with their own scripts and on their own terms. Don't ask anybody, for permission and just run with it. So both approaches are possible. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I need to check with my other Salesforce plus users to see what they're doing with it.
Yeah. That's cool. API access to live data is pretty magical. So, any other questions or comments? Well, with that, I want to thank Benji for an awesome presentation. Super quickly, just a little plug for the upcoming. I wanted to come the upcoming webinars. So this is from the Technicon community and plus plus. So we have in July we have AI L&D Experience Framework presentation. We're also going to have an open demo that Michael is going to be doing at the end of the month. And then we're going to be talking about the skills-based framework for impactful developer education, and also more talks in August on ways to create impactful manager development programs. So stay tuned. You'll be getting emails on talks like this and just in your peers sharing how what they're working on and successes they want to share. So with that, thank you all and have an awesome rest of the day.